Yeah, one of the sayings we have is that organizations go as far as their leaders can grow and let go. And it's sometimes growing to those uncomfortable places, and sometimes it's letting go of something you really like to do, but it's no longer serving because other people need to be able to do that. I'm in that boat. There's things that I love to do in client delivery, and I know that's holding back our organization a little bit as we scale. And so figuring out how I can let go of those things. And here's the other trick, I guess, or maybe thing that we do is I do this with clients. Like, where else could you get the same sort of satisfaction, but it's not in the same role? So I have a lot of hands-on projects at work, at home, that I spend time on so I don't do too much hands-on stuff at work.
Are you looking for ways to shorten your marketing learning curve and help your organization survive and thrive? Welcome to Relish This, the Purpose Marketing Podcast, a show for purpose-focused leaders who want to use marketing techniques to fuel their organization's growth. If you're a returning listener and you haven't subscribed already, we'd love to have you. Also, please consider leaving a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Now here's your host, author and marketing specialist, Stu Swineford.
Hey everybody, Stu here. Running a team can be really hard, and keeping everyone or encouraging everyone to row in the same direction can be a challenge. And that's what my guest today, Chris Hutchinson, CEO, founder, and abundance influencer at the Trebuchet Group, does. He helps leaders get a better understanding of what to let go of how to motivate, and how to get teams aligned. We had a really amazing discussion that just went through all of the ins and outs of being a leader, and how bringing in a coach to help with your leadership can actually help influence other aspects of your life. This is a really fun episode. Chris is a great guy. His team does amazing work. I hope you really enjoy the show. Here we go. Hello, Chris. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. I can't believe the warm weather we're having here in Colorado right now.
Yeah, it's bananas. This actually will drop in February, I believe, of next year. But yeah, it's unseasonably warm weather. In fact, my wife was just across the street from our house and came across 2 or 3, I'm not sure what the number was, but a more than one number of bears over there as she was walking the dogs. So the bears have not yet gone into hibernation up here.
We don't have the bears here, but it's just a bit warmer. And probably in February, when we're listening to this, everybody's going to be like, yep, we're in the middle of snow. So,
well, I hope so. Yeah. It would really be nice to get some, because it's very dry up here right now.
Definitely. So where's up here?
Yeah, I am located up near Nederland, Colorado, which my house is at about 9,000 feet here in the woods. So normally this time of year, it is significantly chillier and snowier than what we are experiencing here in November, it's December today, December of 2021. But yeah, that's where we're currently, doing our podcast things. So how about you guys? You're down the hill a little bit,
We're
right?
down the hill. We're at 5,000 feet, so a lot lower than you in the front range of Colorado on the eastern slope there. So Fort Collins is sort of a nice place to be most of the time. We're looking for snow and cold at some point here. Yeah,
at some point we'll get it, I hope. Yep. It'd be great. Well, tell us about the Trebuchet Group and what you guys are doing in the wonderful world of helping purpose-focused leaders excel.
Oh, that's so cool. I really feel privileged to be able to work with people who are purpose-focused, whether they're team members or leaders or the whole group, trying to figure out what in the world are we doing here. We frequently talk about how we're basically helping leaders and teams work better together. And there's no organization that needs that more than a purpose-based organization, because we got to make that great impact. Mm-hmm. One thing that's kind of interesting right now, I'll sort of share a perspective I'm seeing, and we're helping a lot of people with this, is with the, I would say, clarified lack of control we have in our lives. It was just an assumption before. Everything's great. It's all normal. Everything's fine. And that's been really disrupted a lot. People are feeling the need for a lot more clarity and control at work, because the rest of their lives aren't doing that. So Sometimes that's leading to people collaborating and working well together. Sometimes that's sort of the crab bucket where everybody's just trying to pull up on top and pull each other down. So there's some organizations that we've talked to, and the conversation kind of sounds like this. They're sort of like, Chris and team, we're wondering if the place that we were headed toward is still the place we need to head toward.
Mm-hmm.
Is this still the location? Is this still the outcome that we're going to get? Because either it got dented or we're having a harder time getting there or whatever. Is this a reconsideration of our mission, even as people are reconsidering whether they should stay there or not?
Right.
And then when you say, okay, we don't know where it is, and by the way, and they kind of pull in a little closer and a little quieter, and the leaders say, we don't know if we've really engaged everybody fully in this. I mean, we thought we did, but now we're realizing that some people aren't feeling as welcome or as they belong to the organization as much as we believed they were.
Right.
Or we know that the problem was there and now it's just shown up more, whatever. But we're like, how do we really make sure that everybody's fully contributing to the mission so that we have complete commitment and buy-in to where we're headed? And then there's a little pause. And then they step back a little quieter, kind of off to the side here, kind of leaning over, and they're like, how the hell do you lead in this?
Right.
Because I don't have the vibe I used to feel. The casual connections have to be formalized or they don't happen. I'm trying to figure out what do I do when I have employees that have needs that seem like they're really in conflict with the organization. If I gave everybody this thing I'm doing for this one employee, we couldn't run. And at the same time, I want to keep them and I want to help them. And so there's a lot of turmoil for leaders in figuring out what's my role in this. So everybody's engaged. So we're going to the place we need to go.
Right. Well, there certainly has been a lot of upheaval over the last couple of years, not only with the global pandemic, but just kind of socially, it feels like there's, a lot of things going on, which I would argue are many of them are very good things. And it's always interesting when there's this kind of, big movement that then kind of we settle into it. And it seems right now that we're kind of in the movement part of that trajectory.
I totally agree. I do think these are really good things. And again, it's a lot of times organizations figuring out that we weren't quite as good as we thought we were. On one hand is very grounding and helpful. On the other hand is really disorienting.
Mm-hmm.
And it can feel like, wait a minute, are we doing the right thing? And so, some clients are getting to double down on what they're doing. And they feel like people have leaned in harder and that their purpose is more needed than ever.
Yeah.
So they feel very validated. And some other ones are kind of like, gosh, what do we do? I mean, we do some work with higher ed. And on one hand, they're like, of course, we need this education. And then there's a lot of people like my teenage kids that are sort of like, is school really helping? It's been so hard to do this. And what am I really going to learn about this? And how's it going to help me in my life? So incredibly important society shaping questions. And then really, I think it boils down to, okay, in the circle of this organization and the boundaries here, what are we going to do together? And so we're really lucky to be able to work with people in all those areas, like around strategy and clarity and what are we doing together? Not that we tell them the answer, but more help them develop the answer by talking with each other and understanding things together, helping the team work better because they're like, yeah, how do we really show up in a way that everybody belongs and is fully in there? All their differences are all meshed together to get our best together. And then supporting leaders through coaching and development to help them be more resilient rather than this is the way. It's like, how do you be resilient? How do you develop a resilient team in an organization? Because this isn't the last change that's going to happen.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's really interesting to kind of see how, the idea of leadership, how it has evolved over, even in the amount of time that I've been in business,
Mm-hmm.
but certainly you have, kind of this legacy group of leaders who were brought up to lead a certain way. Mm-hmm. So that tends to be their style. And we're really, in this era of, the workforce and all of the future leaders are kind of thinking, is this how we want to continue to do things? And so there's this huge kind of change that's going on, and how to navigate that when you were brought up to be, this is your job. You go to your desk and you sit there and you work and you don't complain and you go home and then you come back and do it again the next day. And that's how work work works, and things are evolving a little bit, I think.
I
What do
do.
you
I
guys?
agree, and I think the purpose-driven leaders or purpose-driven organizations and leaders are, I think, at the forefront. In some ways, I believe if you went back and talked to people who had really amazing leaders and teachers, they were the ones that did these things that we see are needed all the time.
Hmm.
They would deeply respect and trust you. They would understand they'd point out things that are your strengths that you don't know are strengths because they're normal for you.
Right.
And they wouldn't capitalize on those. They'd help you have the path to go through that. So in some ways we're kind of, I think it's just taking the crust off the top or whatever and really getting down to what is so important around interacting with each other towards some kind of shared benefit and goal for that helps everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, in one way, that's just total common sense. On the other way, I think you're right that I think that maybe that was that way a long time ago. And then when people got authority and more people and more communication, they were like, hey, let's just tell them what to do. Leadership is about direction. It's about pushing. It's about. In my book, I use the analogy of the marbles. Have you ever played marbles?
I have. It's been a while, but I am
So
familiar with the concept. Yes.
yeah, so there's like a string that's a big circle, and you got these little marbles, and you get these really big marbles that are the shooter, and you're
Hmm.
supposed to try to knock them out of the circle or to a certain spot. Using the big marble, do that to the little marbles.
Hmm.
The way to win the game is that you knock it, and the little marble stays where it's supposed to, and you're good, right? So, a lot of people, I think, even in some of my military training, although not all of it, it was around you do the right kind of action to somebody,
Hmm.
shoot that shooter at them, and they go to the place they're supposed to go, and they stay there. Leadership's done.
Right.
Like you just do that to everybody. And I, in the book that I wrote 5 years ago, I talk about it's really more about if you play a game, it's about skipping stones on a lake. And the idea with skipping stones to win is like how far out can you get that thing? How many skips can you make it happen?
Hmm.
So that's around setting up as a leader in the right way to get the right kind of angle and know myself. And then if I do something, this little nice flat round stone, it hits the pond, which is probably another person. It's going to impact them.
Hmm.
And if we do that right, we go impact the systems in the business. And then that goes to impact the clients and their clients and their clients. And it goes on until the
Yeah.
thing's just hovering over the water. And that's more, and oh, by the way, it's not the stone really, it's the energy imparted through those ripples that affects everything.
Right.
And that dies down, and you need to pick up another one. It's a constant redoing of leadership, constantly working on that.
Hmm.
And if you do it right, I think it can be a lot of fun. And I get energy back from it, from the ripples too, as a leader.
Right. Right. It kind of reminds me of a quote, and I'm getting this a little bit wrong, but it's the essence is there is that the best teachers are the ones who realize that they're always students, and just that concept of we're always, there's never like an end point. You're always working on yourself. You're always, trying to do a little bit better,
Yeah, I totally
and
agree. Well, yeah, it's like if like people that like I know when I help somebody learn something, I learn a lot more about it myself
Mhm.
to get to that point. And I know my team recently, they were saying, because they were looking like, okay, 5-10 years, we're really looking out there, which might be retirement age for me. I'm 55, just had a
Mhm.
birthday. And so maybe it's 10 years, maybe 5, don't know. And they said, well, do you get energy by just sort of sitting there imparting this wisdom, since you can tell I'm enjoying sharing this with you and we're interacting. And I kind of said, if that's all it is, I would really not like this.
Right.
If I'm able to share that and learn at the same time,
Right.
I love it. I'd love to do that all the time. And I wouldn't want to get to the place where I wasn't learning and doing that, because it just energizes me to have this sharing, and we end up with something richer than either of us started with.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I think you said it really well, is that, when I can go and teach something, I'm actually learning that much more about it, than I would just even being taught that thing. So
Hmm.
it's such a cool dynamic to be able to experience that, and really, really live in that space where you're able to kind of be somewhat of an influencer, but see how influenced you all are in that space.
Hmm. I have been tremendously influenced recently by clients who are asking for different things, sharing different things. I think stepping into the whole space of how do we help everyone contribute fully and feel like they're fully valued,
Mhm.
which is around equity and inclusion. And do we have diversity of thought and the backgrounds we bring, and so we get a richer solution. That's a really funky place to be, and there's lots of sort of I don't say landmines, but sound traps. You get stuck here or there, or you can avoid something that you should go through.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm continuing to learn in that. I figure when I'm finished learning, that's when you get the pine box out. I'll be done.
Well, I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that we can all continue to learn throughout our lives, because there's certainly always something to be kind of interested in, I hope. So what's your process there at the Trebuchet Group? How do you engage with new clients, and what's that engagement look like?
Oh, you ask good questions. I just have to say that.
Well,
Stu,
thank you.
Really good, thoughtful questions. I can just tell the intentionality. It depends on how they sort of show up. And in general, it's that somebody's kind of word of mouth or something heard, hey, you should go have a conversation with them. Maybe they might be able to help you with something. Or you'll just walk away with some clarity. I love when people walk in, hey, that's what I was told. So I think that the first thing is really to kind of sit down together. Sometimes it's over Zoom now.
Mm-hmm.
And hear about what are the dreams, what are the hopes, what are the possibilities that really the organization would like to have, the leader would like to have a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times. It's like, I see this possibility and we're not quite there. So talk about, well, what's happening at the moment and what have they done so far to try to get there?
Mm-hmm.
And then, it really start collaborating at that point to say, well, what could be the possibilities, or how important is this for you? Is this just a nice to do, or is this something really critical? And what kind of energy, what sort of time? Those are the first biggest things. And then if there's funds, which
Sure.
Usually there's not a budget because people don't plan for like system breakdown or, let's see, my team stops working as well as I'd hoped, even though before it was great. So something's changed.
Right.
So we really talk about that, and then we collaboratively build here's some of the tools we have, and if we arrange them in this order, we think we can step you through. Very frequently, it starts with the team.
Mm-hmm.
It's not only a safe place, it's also a good place, because then we can find out, does the team have the skills and ability and willingness to kind of wrestle with the problems? Frequently, they're not as strong as they could be, and we have these problems. So if we set up a situation where we'll have an offsite, or sometimes it's an online meeting, where we kind of explore these things together, build some trust, get clarity, and figure out what we might do next. So it's this combination of doing it at the same time. Oh, by the way, we're talking sideways with the leader in the background to say, what space would help the team move into? Is that something you let go of? Is it something you grab onto? Mm-hmm. How can we change the conditions so the team then can step into this as well? So that you could say leadership coaching or coordination. That's a lot of what we do. And then we basically run the process together, checking all the way through. We encourage leaders to say, hey, wait a minute, is this where we're supposed to be going?
Mm-hmm.
I think we should change. Like in the middle of the session, if they feel it, we should be able to do that to help them and the team know that they're in control of what's happening.
Right.
We're doing it together. And then at the end, we sort of have okay, here's the information that we heard the team present or bring together, and we bring that back and say, here's the next steps that we can see. These first two you do yourself. The third one we could help with if you like. So it's very much an open, collaborative process, and that'll could be for the goals of that year, or we're working on a project, mm-hmm. or maybe we really are trying to reshape our culture and we're trying to figure out how to do it. So at all those different levels is usually where we start. Sometimes that'll spawn ongoing coaching. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people just come in and say, look, I know I'm the limit on my team. I want to be a better leader, or I have some people I want to help develop. How can we improve ourselves?
That sounds amazing.
It's so cool, when people kind of get there and they're just like, and it's not a deficiency, lack, like I'm not good enough. It's more like I see possibilities and I want to equip my people and myself for this. And I've heard you can help with that, which is just a beautiful place to be. Yeah,
having that self-awareness of really knowing where one's strengths and weaknesses lie. I think that's a hallmark of a really great leader, where it's like, if I know that I need resources to help me doing these three things, but I'm really good at these other things, then that allows that person to stay in that kind of, I'm sure you've heard zone of genius before.
Yeah.
but stay in that area in which they're actually creating the most positive impact for their organization, and kind of get out of their own way.
Yeah, one of the sayings we have is that organizations go as far as their leaders can grow and let go.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes growing to those uncomfortable places, and sometimes it's letting go of something you really like to do,
Yeah.
but it's no longer serving because other people need to be able to do that. I'm in that boat. There's things that I love to do in client delivery, and I know that's holding back our organization a little bit as we scale.
Right.
And so figuring out how I can let go of those things. And here's the other trick, I guess, or maybe thing that we do is I do this with clients. Like, where else could you get the same sort of satisfaction, but it's not in the same role?
Yeah.
So I have a lot of hands-on projects at work, at home, that I spend time on, so I don't do too much hands-on stuff at work.
Oh, that's great. That's a really cool idea.
I need the satisfaction and I want to do it, but if I do it here, I'm taking it away from somebody else in many cases.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen people get really creative with this where, for example, I know someone who ran an agency, kind of like Relish Studio, that he had been a creative his entire life and then had kind of grown into this leadership role and then decided to, start his own agency. But he really still enjoyed the creative stuff. He just knew that A, there were other people who could do that job, and B, he needed to be focused on some other things. But he went ahead and created a seat in his organization as kind of this part-time creative, where there were several blocks of time a week that he was going to be focused on that piece because he did enjoy it and he was still really good at it. And so I don't think you have to always think about giving something up completely. You can get fairly creative in terms of how you approach things.
Yeah, I have heard people doing. That's a great example. I love that where they carve out some time and space for that. I think the people that do it really well take the responsibilities of that role in that role and don't let them blur into the others.
Mm-hmm.
Can inform. Like I'm noticing because I'm working hands-on with clients or something like that. It's like, this could be better, but don't step into CEO role again and go, well, we're changing this.
Right.
Just bring it up as, here's something I noticed. I wonder how other people are feeling about that.
Yeah. Yeah. It is interesting because at that point you are kind of wearing two hats, but if you can divest that CEO role out from that piece and just say, I'm just going to do my thing and maybe bring up some ideas, but I'm not the senior, I'm not going to step on the senior designer's toes, for example.
Exactly. Yeah. And maybe just, I think when it really boils down to it, I've been getting a lot of sort of reinforcement from the universe that curiosity is the key to successful leadership and probably interpersonal relationships too. But just being curious about, well, so what does this do for us? Or, hey, what was the intent that you had when you said that's not going to work? I'm trying to understand. And it allows people to not judge themselves and instead be in a place where they can show up around possibilities and think about what could be better going forward rather than feeling like I'm wrong, I'm bad, that shame spiral that I know it's easy to hit. Even though you're trying to be helpful, people can go into it. I can go into it myself.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we all learn and grow due to, failures and the opportunity to fail. And I think that's one of the challenges of leadership is allowing your team to maybe not necessarily be successful. I mean, obviously you don't want people to, drive the bus off the bridge or something, but,
right.
But as long as these are learning opportunities, I think that's a challenge. And, so many leaders come from this entrepreneurial mindset as well, where particularly in the early phases of building an organization or a business, we are wearing all the hats and we have an idea of how we would do things. And it is very difficult to kind of let go of those items that you need to start filling, giving those hats away. So it's just, that's a real challenge for leaders. How do you recommend people, what's the exercise that you recommend for leaders who are in that boat?
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a couple different ways to get at that, and it's really key. One thing is thinking beyond So I have this position, I have this, there's benefits to it, there's payoffs, even for the things that drive people crazy. There's a payoff to you, or you wouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
But thinking about putting yourself into the future and asking 3 questions. What are the outcomes that you want to achieve in your life you don't yet have? What are the outcomes you want to avoid in your life that might be on the way, or once you get to that, whatever that future is? It's almost like going to the future and coming back. And the last one's, what outcomes do you want to preserve? And you notice I said outcomes, not methods. So it's not like I love this program or whatever. It's like, I like being physically fit and I want to preserve that.
Mm-hmm.
Or I like the energy that gives me to play with my kids, or, whatever the thing would be. And then putting those into a bucket and looking at them and saying, what are the non-negotiables? What are the
Right.
outcomes that I'm not going to say no to? What are the nice to haves? And then there's kind of the rest. And if you look at the non-negotiables and you have a couple of achieves, a couple of avoids, a couple of preserves at a high level for whomever you care about, whatever, you put them on a list, it becomes sort of a screen, a filter that says, if I'm going to do something in my life, like step away from the business, how does that help the direction that I'm going or not?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It might be, no, I'm never going to step away. They carry me out, whatever, because when I look at it, does these things for me, that's a choice. You can do
Yeah.
that. Or it could be, now that, what, if I just stay here and sort of decline, that's going to violate a couple of these criteria that I have, or it certainly won't help. So what are other options? So that's one thing. That's on the kind of the look ahead piece.
Mm-hmm.
Right here, right now. I'm trying to remember where I saw this. It was an Adam Grant or a Dan Pink or one of these guys who are just fabulous at taking information and distilling it down to, here's a thing that can help you.
Right.
Love that. And I think I want to say it was the 80 or 85% rule. This is hard for somebody who has very high standards, but it's essentially looking at something that's produced and saying, is that 85% of what you think it needs to be?
Right.
And letting go. If it's at 85, not trying to add the extra 15%. Very hard for me because I'm also trying to help mentor people, and I don't want to say, well, you need this.
Right.
But instead, what I'm trying to do is when I step back, I say, let me ask a question. I mean, it's good. And let me ask you a question about this piece that I think maybe it could help it a little bit more.
Right.
But actually, as I apply that to myself and look at something and go, it's 85%, it's good.
Yeah.
That lets me let go of that need to put that extra piece on there. The person's going to feel better about what they've done. I'm getting out of the edit mode. You can see how that kind of helps, but
For sure.
You got to just kind of, it's for me, it works for me. I put the bar down a little bit and say, you know what, they're doing great.
Yeah.
And it's sufficient for the business. It's not a problem. Move on.
Yeah, it's the whole perfect is the enemy of done concept,
Yes.
right? Where you can spend 1,000 years trying to tweak something to get it perfect, and it's never going to be, because as soon as you finish that book or finish writing that song or launch that product, there's always going to be something that you're like, I wish I'd tweaked this here, but it's done and it's out there, and it's actually making waves or not. But ultimately you accomplish something and you didn't just spend the rest of eternity kind of tweaking it.
Yeah. I think the best feedback is when you put something out in the universe and then adjust, it's like, ready, aim, fire, refire, or,
right.
There's a lot of things in there. And I will, if you've talked to my team, if we had them on here listening and with their mics on, they would say, this is a work in progress for Chris. Chris is really, on one hand, I love that we've polished things and honed them to a certain place, and it's hard to let go of ensuring that polish continues. And at the same time, it's plenty dang good. And it's going to help everybody grow. And the other thing is not like I'm going to look at it and go, that's not good enough. If it's not good enough, I need to step in and say, okay, here's something that I think is vital. This might turn off a client. This might not help us. This might sort of damage our brand in some way that we don't know now, but down the future. I need to say those things. And I'm like, here's something I could see. How much do you think it's an issue? And give that control to the person, and then try to collaborate with them so they can go, yeah, that's a good point. Or I don't see that. Okay. Press it.
Yeah.
Planted the seed. If it comes up later, great. If it doesn't, that's okay.
Well, and you're probably going to make adjustments to it at some point anyway, so it can live in the market for however long, and then you bring out version version 3.1 or
We,
whatever.
we,
So,
we just are doing that. We had a client. This is so cool. I love this story because I love that I've lived this story. Client came to us and said, we've taken our up and coming leaders to events. And we've also done year-long programs,
mhm.
and we're not really psyched with the results. We know you have this book, and I'm like, yeah, it's a self-guided book. You just take the book and just do it, right? And they're like, well, yes, and we want to create an environment. We want to have you build out a 9-month class or a long class cohort kind of thing where multiple clients send their people to you,
Mhm.
and simultaneously they all work together, they cross-pollinate, they learn this stuff together, and they learn what's important about being a leader, how they can show up and help other people, and how they can go make our systems better. And we'll front load that. We're going to pay for the development of it and buy 4 slots.
Okay.
And we had, here's the 2 other companies we think we want to have the cross-pollination with. Let's go. So we had a cohort, I think was it 9? I think it was 9, but it was 9 months long, just ended. Fabulous results. People are psyched. It was very reassuring and validating for me that, yep, we're really helping people. A couple of our team members have grown because they've been the ones facilitating along with me.
Right.
And next year, we're doing a larger rollout of the same thing with some small tweaks. And it's kind of funny. Like, I believe everybody could be a leader or is leading in some way, even when you're
Mhm.
just advising a peer or asking them questions. So we're going to have a sort of a team version of it where it doesn't say you want to be a leader. It says you want to really contribute as part of the team,
Right.
and have a scaled back version of the program where it's only a semester long, like 12 weeks,
Okay.
where people can come in, learn about themselves, learn about how to be really excellent team members, not just do their job.
Right.
And then how do we work together to make this place hum?
Yeah.
And so we're going to be offering 2 of those next year too. So, and that's another iteration. And we'll see. When you said 3.0, I'm like, yep, that'll be the year after.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting how there's so much overlap, and I've been in programs in the past where we talked a lot about business because everybody in the program was an entrepreneur of some sort,
Mhm.
and but there's all these other components of our lives that are required to be in either sync or at least harmony with that entrepreneurial kind of pillar. And
Mhm.
you can kind of chop up things however you like. And I guess I shouldn't have said chop up because they are all part of us as people. But one of the ways to look at it was there's business life, there's personal life, there's family, and there are kind of friends, and all of those. If you can get all of those humming and working well together,
Mhm.
that's where like true magic happens. And so, this kind of leadership training, it actually can inform other aspects of one's personality as well. And so it's cool to hear how you are approaching that, not just looking at just the leaders, but showing how other members of the team can apply this kind of these concepts to not only their business lives but perhaps elsewhere.
Yeah, I jokingly say in some of these, I'll say, kind of with a wink, wink in my voice, sort of like, of course, these do not work with friends, family, relatives, or anything like that. This is strictly business, that we're going to trust people and have challenging conversations to get to the heart of the matter. And, people laugh. And it's kind of fun when I hear people that said, yeah, I did this thing. And then I went home and was talking to my son and I realized, oh my God, this is like, I'm not listening. I need to listen to what is important to him and validate that. And then he'll be open to maybe what I might see different. And
Yeah,
until I do that, I'm just talking at him. But that's, well, probably the way I was parented.
sure.
I
Yeah,
can, I can change. I can shift this. So he'll have a different model going forward,
yeah,
different possibility, which
yeah.
is, that's really cool to hear. Because I think, one more thing I want to share, Stu. Was it 3 weeks ago? My team and I, we went down to Pagosa Springs for
Okay.
that's a hot spring place in the
Yeah,
mountains.
yeah.
And we had some relaxation and some hikes. And we also did thinking and planning for the future. And when I went in, I'm just going to be real transparent and say I was pretty nervous. We have people with really strong beliefs about what should be happening in the world, and they don't always completely overlap.
Right.
They're, and I want them to do that, and I want it to overlap as much as it can. And I was a little worried that maybe we were actually moving all in different directions.
Hmm.
So we went through this exercise to say, a la Simon Sinek and some other cool people who've thought about this, is like, what's our core purpose? What's our just cause? What is the world that we want, where the things that irritate us a lot, that bother us about the world, are not present?
Right.
And that's the way you do the exercise. Everybody says, what pisses you off about the world, and what would the world look like without that?
Right.
And it was so cool. I don't want to shout. It was just awesome, because we really came down to this, and it just coalesced right in front of us without a lot of wordsmithing. And we said, you know what? We all want a world where everyone can thrive collectively and individually at work.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And that is what all, we're going to have lots of different variations, from this leadership program to coaching to, communications to DEI work. All those things are aimed at that. And if it's aiming at that, we're going the right direction. And it was so empowering for me. It went from fear to excitement, because knowing where we're headed, then
Right.
I can let go a little. It's not up to me to pull us that way. It's up to all of us. And so now it's a shared collective purpose and where we're headed. I'm just pumped. You can hear it.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing when you can get everybody rowing the same direction.
Mhm.
And if you don't do that planning, and you don't know what that future aspirational state is, or your North Star, or whatever you want to call that,
Right.
then you have the potential for, everyone to maybe be rowing as hard as they can. But if they're not rowing the same direction, you're just not going to get there.
Yeah,
And
I have
yeah.
seen boats where, like, if you in a large organizations where engineering's on one side, marketing's on the other, and they're rowing so hard they crack the boat.
Uh-huh.
And you're like, "What are you doing?" And they're like, "Well, the hole's not in my side, so I'm fine."
Right.
And they're like, "Wait, wait, no, 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 no." Do you hear what you're saying? They're like, "Yeah, we're above water. They're those suckers back there. I'm sorry, the hole's in their side. I don't know. They have a problem, right?" Instead of like, "Holy crap, we're going to sink.
Right.
We got to be together." And
Right.
it seems common sense, and yet we get in these places where we get so competitive sometimes. Some organizations where, but if you could row the same direction and pass that hole, there's nothing you can't do.
Right. Yeah, it's fantastic. So you've mentioned your book a couple of times. Tell us
Oh,
a little bit more about that.
so my book is called Ripple. It's a field manual for leadership that works, with a double meaning: leadership that works and people that are actually doing leadership that's effective. Um, I wrote that. I started it thinking I would put down some of my articles and things that I've written to help give some guidelines for clients around. I was seeing them put different things in place, where they put a piece of a system from some book or something in one place of their business, and there'd be something else in another. And I'm like, these are diametrically opposed. They're not
Mhm.
philosophically aligned or aligned in values. And I'd ask them, do you see this kind of clash between these? And they go, yeah, but they're both successful. I'm like, well, it's the integratedness that's going to make the difference.
Right.
I'm not judging it's good or bad. It's just they're fighting each other to the point, not healthy tension, but actual friction, and the engine's going to burn up.
Right.
So I kind of set out, it'll take 6 months to do this. That was, I'm trying to remember when it was, 2009,
Okay.
I think. And then in 2015, 6 years later, I got the book together, and I actually gave you the beginning. The reason I called it Ripple was because of the thing I told you about. It's the energy in the ripples that's the
Mhm.
thing that makes the difference for leaders. And so went out and then said, kind of talked about the ripples from inside out, and there's sort of three main pieces with two components each. So as a leader, my ability to do things is proportional to how much I know myself. It's
Okay.
kind of like a duh, right?
Yeah.
In that
Yeah.
kind of thing. But that's, if I don't know myself, I then think things are going to be rather challenging. It's going to be hard to figure out, where do I push or where do I pull or things like that.
Hmm.
The second one is, leaders are judged more by what they don't than by what they do.
Okay.
So it's about being in action as a leader. So the first one's kind of being, the second piece is sort of doing.
Right.
All right. So if I'm doing those things well, now I've done my setup. I launched my rock smoothly into the, across the pond. The third principle is really, the second thing is leading others.
Okay.
So people discover their best selves through being respected by a leader. There are folks that can rise above horrifically abusive situations, but for the most part, it's when somebody says, Stu, that was amazing. When you did that, here's the impact it had on that person,
Hmm.
and they're going to be a better person over life. And, you should keep doing that. That's where people just glow, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And I think that's a responsibility as a leader to do that. I have clients that I talk to sometimes, and I point something out and they're like, yeah, that's just, whatever. And I'm like, no, wait a minute. You chose to do that. That was an active choice on your part. And kind of everybody does that. I'll stop them again and say, wait, have you ever noticed anybody struggle with this? And they kind of get a wrinkled face and they go, yeah, it's really weird. I don't get that. Because it's a superpower for them and it's normal, right? And I'm like,
Right.
this is actually strength. You're not. And if you don't know it's a strength, you'll start seeing people as inadequate if they don't have it.
Right. I
You'll be
love
like,
that.
yeah, and most places and organizations and people are operating of an over application of a strength rather than a weakness. It's usually too much of a good thing. The cool part about that is you just let off on the accelerator a little bit and you'll actually get more effective, which is backward thinking, right? Why would I do that? If I let off on the accelerator, well, you're driving on ice. You're going too fast.
Yep.
And so if you actually go a little slower, you'll actually go faster, right? Because you get more traction. Okay, so then, and the fourth principle is, so if I really respect you, is that people multiply a leader's power only as much as that power is shared.
Okay.
So if I don't work with you and enable you to do stuff like we just were talking about, that's it. That's a limit on my power.
Right.
And then the last two pieces. So we got, I'm being and doing as a leader. I'm being and doing with you as a person,
Mhm.
and then there's the kind of be and do in the organization itself, which is sort of the system part. So the fifth principle is organizations are designed to get the results they're getting. If you want,
Right.
if you want different results, you got to change the design. You don't just like do it harder or faster or whatever.
Right.
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 So it's effectiveness. It's really, are we doing the right thing? And then the final one that, and I'm trying to make this positive, even though people see it negatively, organizations generating waste are generating opportunities for improvement.
Right.
So that's around efficiency. And most organizations do this backwards. They'll start with efficiency. Like, hey, Stu, we need 87%. This 82% is not good enough. You
Uh-huh.
got to figure out what to do. Work harder, do whatever. And you do everything you can. It doesn't get better. And it's like, oh, silly us. It's not efficiency. It's actually effectiveness. We're not doing the right things. So let's reorg. Let's change the process. Okay, great. We try that. Maybe that doesn't work. Then it slides back to that equipping piece I told you about. Like I'm not really treated you like a person. I haven't given you tools that really help. And so why in the world could you do better? And then if I haven't done that, do I see you as a person beyond, like as a person with unique skills and abilities and I trust you and enable you, or do I see you as a cog?
Mhm.
And then that part's all cool. Most people can deal with that part. And then it gets personal because now it's inside the boundary of me. Am I showing up in the right ways to enable someone to do the right kind of stuff? And then do I really know who I am and what I'm about? If you go from the inside out, it's way more effective, but most people kind of go from the outside in. It's a lot safer to talk about that 87, 82 number than I'm not showing up well as a leader because I don't really know what I want here.
Right. Right. Well, and
So,
it's that kind of taking ownership over the leadership piece, where it's like if somebody's failing, then there's something that the leader could have done to improve their ability or their opportunity to succeed.
yeah, there's definitely work, and I'm spacing the guy's name, but very famous guy who helped the Japanese. You maybe remember this. Gosh, why I can't remember his name, but he would talk about how the problems were usually 80+% of the system problem and not the person problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's around the constraints or the rules or the stuff that the person was given. They did the best they could considering, and yet we usually punish the people
Right.
around doing a bad job. So
Right.
it's kind of sitting back and saying, well, what are the conditions that we set this person up with? What if we change those? What if we move the trash can instead of 40 feet away, put it right next to the workbench?
Mm-hmm.
Probably things won't get dropped on the floor. They'll
Right.
probably go in the trash can.
Yeah,
So,
it's amazing how we can make just those minor adjustments that actually create huge opportunity. in our in our lives in general, as not just business lives. It's just it's kind of like what you mentioned with your how one is approaching having a conversation with their kid. If you could just take a step back and move the trash can a little bit, there might be some big wins available there.
Oh, well, back to the thing when, I jokingly said, that's just in work.
Mm-hmm.
Stu, that doesn't work at home. It doesn't matter where the trash can goes at home, right? It's not the same thing at all, right? No, it is. It is so, what's so cool is to be able to have people grab onto things that really make their lives better.
Right.
One of the things in there I have is a thing that says light their torches.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm going to help, I should light your torch, and it's going to guide you in your direction, not mine. Hopefully they overlap for a while because I like you and we're doing good stuff together. But ultimately, I believe it's my responsibility or calling to help you figure out what's most important for you. And I wouldn't want that to be something other than what we're doing and have you be trapped here.
Right. Yeah. That's a really cool concept, actually. I love it. So what are some of the things that you see in the nonprofit world in particular that if you could just shine a light on this for most nonprofit leaders, it would make huge differences in the way that they're running those organizations?
Wow, that's a big question.
Yeah,
that's a good one though. I mean, I think there's some challenges that nonprofits can face that other organizations don't. One of them that I see that I challenge gently, and when I see it, not in a judgmental way,
mm-hmm.
is the belief that there sometimes can be in an organization the belief that if you really believe in this mission, your suffering demonstrates your belief in the mission.
Right.
Could be pay, could be conditions, could be that we can't get what we need to get. Sort of encouraged scarcity, I guess, which really, and I'm not saying you just like raise everybody's salaries up or things, but I think the important part is saying if we imagine this over long term, what will this sustainably be? And the other question that I've heard people say is, and we try to, what if we worked ourselves out of a job? Like, what if we took this and worked? What would we do maybe differently versus the challenge of you get rewarded when you're helping somebody that's systemically having a challenge and you're not really working on the system that's causing it.
Right. So it's that building the hospital at the bottom of the river concept.
Yes. Instead of going upriver and trying to figure out why the hell are people falling into the river,
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really hard. We facilitated a conversation a number of years ago in a community, and they were really looking. Affordable housing is, I think, a problem everywhere. It's a problem in our community too.
Mm-hmm.
And the convening group, which was a bunch of leaders in different sectors, said, let's have something where we bring people together and talk about this affordable housing challenge and what we might be able to think as possibilities. And it was a little sad and revealing that when we got to the end, these 40 people, everybody, we had small groups and came up with stickies and group things on the wall and came up and there was this small list of here's the things we might be able to do sort of collectively. And at the end of it, everybody stood up and said, well, that's nice. And really, the way we solve this is fund my organization.
Mm-hmm.
They were so, and that deep belief was propelling them and limiting them at the same time. It was that I have the window onto the solution here, and you just need to fund me, and we'll do it. And so there was no systemic collaboration possible. Nobody was willing to sacrifice anything in, let's go upstream. Let's invest in somebody else that may be getting this ahead of me, and working myself out of a role.
Right.
And so it's a double bind, right? It's great that these people are so committed and dedicated, willing to suffer. On the other hand, if we don't really look at things sort of collectively, we're probably not going to do much more than sort of apply salve or balm to help people rather than really address the root causes of some challenges.
Yeah, it's
So that's a big answer back. Just let go of that scarcity and think about what you could do together first. There we go. That's simple advice.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, sometimes there are people who have systems in place that are just more effective or are addressing the root of that situation, and that's the direction that we all need to go. And it's kind of a bummer if you're, your organization is teed up to kind of solve a different part of the problem, but if the root problem can go away, then your organization doesn't need to be around anymore. I mean, that's a little bit of a bummer, but it's also, like you said, I mean, in the nonprofit space, there are tons of nonprofits out there that ideally they are able to solve that problem and not be needed anymore.
Yep.
And that's an interesting concept, because I think that, that's kind of a hard place to sit, is that I'm going to solve this and then I'm going to be out of a job. But if we could move more effectively toward that, or more efficiently toward that, that'd be really great.
It is really tough, because that job, probably the satisfaction of doing the work they're doing is the reason they're there.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's no satisfaction in resolving a problem that goes away, so it is a weird catch-22 that can happen to a lot of organizations in the nonprofit world.
Yeah.
Not all. Some of them are doing root work, and nobody can solve it by themselves. It's not like we just merge them all into one giant Borg of a organization that's going to fix everything. I think there's a lot to be said for people experimenting and trying little things all over to figure out what would be effective, and that might run for 10 years really well, and then it doesn't kind of work because the conditions have changed.
Right.
So I think probably, and this works across the board in any organization, if leaders fall prey to the role and self being tightly wound, it's very hard to accept criticism, to see things beyond yourself, and it just makes it really hard to move forward in a larger way. It's about that leader growing and letting go.
Right. It's like letting go of that "what I do is who I am" concept.
Very much so. And some of the people that have the hardest with that is like I attended an event last night, and there's this group that gets first responders together to just kind of go out and hunt and fish and hang out, because it's really hard to talk about mental health.
Yeah.
For them, it's a taboo subject. Sometimes it could even get you fired. And yet they desperately need to process some things that they don't have control over. People dying in front of them, even though they did their best, right? Yeah. So really hard situation. You probably can't address the root cause there of the challenge from the work, but you can address how do we help people work through this themselves, to the point where they can be more whole people throughout this incredible work they're doing. So it's really cool that there's organizations like that popping up. And we were talking about the people that show up and pulling the role off and seeing themselves as whole beside that is a real challenge. When you see yourself as a saver or rescuer, but you're unable to rescue yourself. Very tough.
Yeah, I can see how that's a real challenge for people. And again, just digging down to the root cause of that, if there were opportunities to reduce or remove the stigma of those feelings that most of that community is probably experiencing, at least on some level, then that could work that organization out of their role of providing that support group. But it's fantastic that they exist in this moment, as we continue to move toward the bigger fixes of that particular affliction, I guess.
The people who are the guides that go out with the folks are retired first responders, and they've been there, done that kind of thing. And so they know they're not there to fix the people. They're there to help the people sort of work on themselves.
Yeah.
I believe that they actually are addressing a little root cause, because those folks that, let's say, instead of at 60, when these guys are retired and sort of doing the guiding, but they're at 30 or 25 or 27, if they are able to work through that, I believe that they'll turn around and do that to the next person. Yeah. And so you start moving the barrier away from, it's okay to do this. And someday it'll be like, hey, it's like, yeah, I got a flu. I got to go for my mental health checkup. And it's pretty far in the future probably, but I don't think that doesn't mean we shouldn't keep working on it. And that's just being human. Yeah.
Well, if you can reduce the timeline on those cycles, then, eventually it goes, instead of a 30-year gap, it goes to a 15-year gap, and then a 5. And then, eventually it's just part of the training when you're coming in, is that, hey, this is going to happen. It's going to be unpleasant. And here are the resources that we have to help you understand how this works.
I think it's what's really cool. I mean, we're talking about deep purpose-based work,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's in a nonprofit or a profit-based or, municipal organization, higher ed. We get to work with all of them, and there's always a purpose at the center. Sometimes it might be a little covered up by other stuff, but there's almost always, I want to make life better for people. I want to have a good life myself. And how do I do that for myself and others? As much as I can is, I think, at the core of all our offerings. I mean, they look like, team building, all this other stuff, but it really boils down to that, how we're helping people be their best selves without the pressure to be perfect and make a difference. Because just by showing up, you really make a difference. And that it feels like very core work. I've had people say it's spiritual. It's, and I'm like, yeah, but you're doing business stuff. How is this spiritual? I think we're just at the place where people are being themselves. And it's a very sacred place to be, working with folks around that.
I love it. I'm glad that you're doing this work. It's just fantastic to be able to talk with you and hear more about what you're up to and all the good work that you're doing in the world. And it's great. I appreciate you being on the show today.
Thanks. I appreciate you asking the questions to get kind of beneath the surface. And I don't normally talk about this kind of layer of stuff. We're just kind of making things better, but our intention is to have the reverberations, the ripples, continue to help people in their lives. And so maybe there's some folks out there like, maybe we should have a conversation. I don't know. It would be cool because we don't judge. We're just like, hey, where are you? Where are you going? And I feel it's an honor to be able to walk alongside people for however long it works.
Yeah, that's great. How can people find out more about you and the Trebuchet Group?
Sure. A couple places. So there's trebuchetgroup.com. If you don't put the group in there, you'll see some really cool medieval war instruments, but no, that's not us. Trebuchetgroup.com. And that we have all our information on there. Probably there's also a site that's kind of dedicated to the book. It's rippleader.com. That's another place you can look. And we have some podcasts and stuff. I'm so glad to be here with you. It's just great to have your questions and your curiosity and your openness. It's really empowering.
Well, I appreciate you being on the show. And as you may know, if you've listened to any of the past episodes, I really love having these conversations and talking with everybody and just learning more about how we can all, be better leaders in every part of our lives. But I also want to facilitate action and talking's great, but what can people do after listening to the show today? What would you have people do to make the world a better place or make their lives a little bit better?
Perfect question. Well, I'd love to have them just think about the impact they're making and how that's working for them, and then take action if it's not fully satisfying. So go talk to somebody else, give us a call, work with whomever you're working with that can help you on that. I think believing that you can have an impact you want to have and going for it, it would be just imagine if everybody did that, Stu. We'd be awesome.
We would be awesome. We're already awesome, but
we're already awesome.
Even more.
We'd be awesomer.
We'd be way more awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me today, Chris. It was really fun talking with you. I'm excited to hear how things continue to evolve for you at the Trebuchet Group, and hope that you can influence some more people here coming up as we go into 2022.
Awesome. Well, it's really an honor. I really appreciate being on the show and having the conversation. And I'm looking forward to whatever we talk again. And maybe we'll have you on my podcast or something.
Oh, that'd be lovely. I'd love that.
That'd go the other way. That'd be terrific.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
Bye. And there you have it. Another great episode of Relish This. Thanks again for listening. You can find past episodes of the show at relishthis.org. And remember, if you liked what you heard today, please subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. For more information on purpose marketing, grab your free copy of my book, Mission Uncomfortable: How Nonprofits Can Embrace Purpose-Driven Marketing to Survive and Thrive. Get your copy now at missionuncomfortablebook.com. Thanks again for listening. Come back next week, won't you?